deficit and be more efficient.
So there are different factors that can drive the differences in inflation dynamics in countries. One is when you have these shocks, for example, food prices or energy prices, the effect on countries can be very different. And for example, low-income countries, a shock in food prices can have a very large effect on the household's consumption basket, and that will be reflected also on a higher inflation. Also, if you lack a credible policy framework and anchor inflation expectations, the effect of these shocks can be much larger and persistent over time. So that's part of the problem. Also, talking about cases like Nigeria or Ghana, where you have a large dependence on commodity prices and you can have effects of very large increases in oil prices, for example. So what happens in oil exporters is that when you have very large movements in oil price, this can lead to destabilization in the macro and the domestic economy. For example, if you have a large revenue windfall, like we have seen in the last years, this can lead to inflationary pressures in these countries. Fiscal policy can play a major role here. So if you have a counter-cyclical fiscal policy, that is, if the government save part of these windfalls, that's going to reduce the inflation pressures, and it's going to build buffers so that you can react when the oil prices fall, and so you make the economy more stable. But if fiscal policy is pro-cyclical, so that is spending increases when oil price increases, that is going to create more problems for inflation. So ultimately, you really need a consistent macro policy framework with basically fiscal and inflation and monetary policy work together to ensure this macro stability and price stability. And the problem is once you lose the inflation expectations, so they become de-anchored, then it's going to be much more difficult. So you're going to have both tight fiscal and monetary policy for longer. And so the cost is larger to bring price stability back. So that's, I think, it's the problem it's facing for many of these countries.